Let's dive into a place of absolutely staggering geographical contrasts, India. We're going to take a whirlwind tour of an entire subcontinent, from the highest peaks on Earth all the way down to tropical shores. And we're going to do it all in just a few minutes. Let's get started.
So, this is the big question, right? How can one single country hold all of this? You've got icy mountains, you've got sprawling farmlands, an ancient rocky heartland, and tropical beaches. It almost doesn't seem possible. Well, the answer is a wild story of colliding continents, immense geological forces, and the endless work of wind and water.
So we have to start our journey in the far north. I mean, you just can't miss it on a map. That huge dramatic wall of mountains that basically defines the entire subcontinent, the Himalayas.
Okay, now get this, because it's probably the opposite of what you're thinking. We imagine mountains as these ancient, solid things, right? Well, the Himalayas are basically geological teenagers. They were formed when the Indian plate slammed into the Eurasian plate, and guess what? That collision is still happening. It means these mountains are constantly shifting, folding, and changing.
And this, right here, is the fundamental story of India's geology. You have the young, restless Himalayas up north, and then you have the peninsular block to the south. Now, this southern part is a chunk of the ancient supercontinent Gondwana. We're talking incredibly old, hard, stable rock. It's the collision between this young upstart and the ancient unmoving block that forged the India we see today. So the Himalayas are so much more than just a wall of rock. They're a climate barrier. They stop all those freezing cold winds from Central Asia from sweeping down, which is a huge reason why so much of India is tropical. And, maybe most importantly, they act like a giant net, trapping the monsoon winds and forcing them to dump all that rain, which in turn feeds all the great rivers. They are, literally, India's life support system.
Okay, so as we come down from those high peaks, we land in our next region, the massive, flat, and absolutely packed Northern Plains. This is the agricultural heart of India, home to hundreds and hundreds of millions of people.
You look at this huge, flat expanse, and you just have to wonder, where did all this come from? It wasn't always here. In fact, its entire existence is tied directly to the rise of those mountains we just left behind. The whole process was just monumental. So as the Himalayas were being pushed up, this gigantic trench, or a four-deep, opened up right in front of them. Then, for millions of years, the rivers born in those brand new mountains carried unbelievable amounts of silt and sand and just dumped it into that trench, filling it up bit by bit. The result? One of the biggest, most fertile alluvial plains in the entire world. And the soil itself tells the story of those rivers. You basically have two types. There's Bangar, which is the older soil that sits on higher ground away from the rivers, and then there's Khadar. That's the new stuff, the fresh silt that gets dropped in the floodplains every year. It's this constant top-up that keeps the region so unbelievably fertile.
All right, let's head south to our third major zone, the Peninsular Plateau. If the Himalayas are the young, dramatic crown of India, this is its ancient, steady heart. We're now standing on that original, hard rock from the old Gondwana landmass. And to put the age of this place in perspective, the entire Earth is about 4.6 billion years old. The rocks that make up this plateau are some of the oldest on the whole planet. I mean, they've been around long, long before the Himalayas even existed, which gives this whole landscape a totally different feel. Because this land is so incredibly old, it's been worn down by time. You don't see the sharp, jagged peaks of the Himalayas here. Instead, you get mountains like the Aravallis, which are basically just the ancient stubs of mountains that were once huge. The rivers here just meander through wide, shallow valleys. You can really feel the immense age of this place. Now, the edges of this plateau are flanked by two mountain ranges, the Ghats. But they're not twins, not even close. The Western Ghats are like a high, continuous wall that rises straight up from the coast, and they get hit first by the monsoon. The Eastern Ghats, on the other hand, are lower, and they're broken up into a bunch of separate hills by the big rivers flowing out to sea. So we visited three incredibly different places: towering mountains, flat plains, and an ancient plateau. What on earth ties all of this together? Well, the answer isn't on the ground. It's in the sky. It's the powerful, continent-wide engine of the monsoon. You know, we often think the monsoon is just rain, but it's so much more than that.
It's actually a massive seasonal U-turn of the winds. In the summer, wet winds blow from the ocean onto the land, bringing rain. Then in the winter, the whole system flips and dry winds blow from the land out to sea. This single rhythm dictates life everywhere we've just been. And when the monsoon arrives, it doesn't just show up as one giant wall of water. The southern tip of India acts like a wedge, and it splits the monsoon into two separate arms. You've got the Arabian Sea branch, which soaks the west coast, and then the Bay of Bengal branch, which sweeps up through the east and curves around to water the northern plains.
And its arrival is anything but gentle. The source material uses the perfect word for it, the burst. It's this incredibly dramatic, powerful event, thunder, lightning, that can transform a hot, dry landscape in just a few hours. It's the start of the season that brings everything to life.
Okay, for the last stop on our tour, we're heading to the very edges of the subcontinent. Its long, beautiful coastlines and its islands way out in the ocean. And just like the Ghats, the two coasts tell two completely different stories. The west coast is what's called a submerged coastline. It's narrow, a little rugged, and it's got lots of great natural harbors. But the east coast is an emergent coastline. It's much wider, it's flatter, and it's where those huge rivers have built up massive, fertile deltas as they empty into the sea. And finally, the islands. Way out in the Bay of Bengal, you have the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which are actually the tops of a submerged mountain range. They're volcanic. Then, over in the Arabian Sea, you've got the Lakshadweep Islands, which have a totally different origin story. They're beautiful coral atolls. So, there you have it. We've gone from the roof of the world, down through the breadbasket of a nation, across its ancient heartland, and out to its shores and islands. It's so clear that India isn't just one landscape. It's this incredible mosaic of completely different worlds, all stitched together into one subcontinent.
And all of this leaves us with one final, much bigger question. We've just toured the physical stage, right? But how has this unbelievable variety, the mountains that protect, the rivers that give life, the coasts that offer trade, how has all of that shaped the amazing diversity of cultures, the complex history, and the future of the more than 1 billion people who call this place home?